so much for having me. I spoke here maybe like a year and a half ago for like some of the ambassadors and basketball team, but happy to come here and speak again to talk a little bit more about, again, my college experience, but like specifically like what that has meant in parallel with my Filipino heritage. I don't know if like there was a Filipino club when I was here at Bishop, so it's cool to like see how involved you guys are in like inviting people back to speak, which is awesome, and especially during this time of the month. But I guess I'll maybe like start back at the beginning. I wanted this to be a super informal conversation, so if you guys have any questions at any time, please let me know to raise your hand, but I'll leave some time after if anyone has any questions. But I grew up here in Southern California. I grew up in Carson, moved to Torrance right before I came here to Bishop. And I come from a family of obviously Filipino heritage. Both of my parents were born here. My grandparents all emigrated here in the 1970s, kind of your traditional immigrant story of wanting to come here to look for better opportunities for themselves and their families. But I think, you know, obviously a big part of my life has been basketball. I started playing basketball, I think, at like the age of 4, but have like loved it for as long as I can remember. And I think that's been sort of a combination of a lot of things. I think one, just sort of being here in LA, watching like Kobe and Shaq play, like prime Lakers, but also two, being Filipino. Like I feel like the Filipino community just like absolutely loves basketball, even though there might not be a lot of like representation at the Division I or on the professional level. It's just something I think our community really embraces, and so I feel like with that combination of things, it was sort of just a natural progression for me to start playing basketball and to really start liking it. At first it was just kind of like for the snacks and to make friends and be a part of a team, but as time went on, I think like it sounds kind of funky, but like in the 3rd grade I really started to get serious about basketball. I used to think like you could major in basketball in college, and that was like what I wanted to do. It was a harsh realization when I realized you had to actually study something and not just play basketball in college. But I started playing, if anyone here know like what FOR is or played in FOR, Asian American League? Nice, okay. I played in FOR like growing up, which is basically again like an Asian American youth basketball league, which I think was really critical in my development for like loving the game, like gaining a competitive drive, and just like again learning how to be a good teammate and how to play really great basketball. And with that, I was surrounded by other Asian American basketball players, so it really felt normal to be like in that environment, playing with and against other people that looked like you. And the South Bay is just like such a huge hub for like really great Asian American basketball. So I never felt like an outsider to the scene, just because it was so integral to who I was and to like what this community was about. So again, like growing up, obviously continued playing basketball. I came here I went to Nativity Catholic School from elementary and my middle school days, and then came here to Bishop in 2015, where again, kind of the sort of guiding light for me has like been to land in places that could not only like get me better academically and athletically, but a place that could really shape me and who I am. And Bishop definitely was a place for me. My mom went here, and I've had like really close ties to this high school for a really long time. But I think like as you sort of climb the ranks in basketball, like the less and less representation you see of Asian Americans. And so, well, I definitely like still didn't think I was an outsider to like the basketball world. Playing in high school, definitely like when I entered the club circuit, like playing on the Nike EYBL sort of scene where you get to play against players from all across the country and like play all over, again, play at so many different states. That's when I sort of started to feel like, okay, maybe like I am kind of the minority here. Like there's not a lot of people who look like me. I was the only Asian American on my club team, and again, wasn't playing against a lot of people who sort of shared the same experiences and background as I did. But here at Bishop I had a really great time, really like found a home here, had great success on the basketball court and academically, and at that point I already knew like I wanted to play in college. Obviously couldn't major in basketball, but had really great ambitions to go to a school that challenged me academically and athletically, but also like again was setting me up to do great things and sort of elevate who I am and my identity. And so with like my recruiting process, I was recruited pretty well, but not like from your Power 5 schools. That's like your Pac-12s, your Big Tens, the USCs of the world, like your Stanfords. I was getting recruited by like a lot of mid-major schools around this area and Ivy Leagues, which was like sort of like a completely different world to me. Like I never knew that it would be possible for me to attend an Ivy League school. Ended up committing to the University of Pennsylvania during my junior year of high school. And there were sort of a lot of factors that went into my decision to go there. Again, one, like I wanted to study business, and there's no sort of better place to do that than at Penn, at the Wharton School of Business. Two, Penn has a really great basketball program, a long history of success, but also an opportunity for me to step in as a freshman and make an immediate impact, which was important for me. And three, it was really relationship driven. I had a great relationship with the coaches, and I felt like they were able to really value me for who I was beyond just a basketball player, which was super important for me. And then I also wanted to challenge myself. Like I love my family, I love California, but I wanted to sort of expand my horizons and be in a place where I could learn to live independently, be on my own, and be in a new city. And obviously Penn checked off all those boxes for me. But I've gotten asked a lot about, like, especially as of recently, as it pertains to like my Asian American heritage. It's like, have you ever faced like discrimination or any challenges like during the recruiting process just because of like who you are? And I would say maybe not as strong as a word of discrimination, but there have definitely like been challenges to sort of trying to elevate in the basketball world as an Asian American. Again, there's not a lot of representation, so there's not necessarily a blueprint for you to follow or people who you can replicate. So I think there was a lot of challenges for me, like not passing the eye test or having a lot of stereotypes of like not being athletic enough or not being able to keep up. So I feel like a lot of Asian Americans, especially trying to enter college basketball, sort of get this rep of being overlooked and maybe underestimated. And I've taken that upon myself to really throughout my college career to sort of change the narrative as to what it means to be an Asian American pursuing college athletics and college basketball. So my time at Penn was great. I got kind of mixed up in like the COVID group so my freshman year, I got to Penn in 2019, and obviously 2020, the pandemic happened. So I kind of went through my first freshman year and got sent home in March. But that was the first time really at Penn when I got there that I kind of felt like I was out of my element a little bit. Like, has anyone heard of the term imposter syndrome in here? Yeah. So I felt that way, like in the sense of like maybe I didn't belong in a lot of different aspects. One, I think coming into Penn, having been recruited for basketball, like I maybe felt as if my value was just athletically, and maybe I didn't bring as much to the person on my left, the person on my right, who maybe have got in sort of the original way. So I was kind of nervous about how I'd fit in there. But two, also like Penn and a lot of other Ivy League schools are predominantly white institutions, so that was the first time where I wasn't surrounded by a lot of other Asian Americans and Filipinos themselves. I think there were maybe less than 20 or 30 other Filipinos at Penn in a population of over 10,000 students, so it was hard to find a community where you kind of instantly feel like you belong. So that was definitely a wake-up call for me. Again, I was the only Asian American on the Penn basketball team and maybe one of 5 Asian Americans playing basketball in the Ivy League. So again, it was the first time in my life where I kind of felt like I was an outsider. But at that time, like, you have the chance to either do one of two things. You have the chance to look at that as a barrier or like a hindrance as to, limiting that to what you can achieve. Or two, you can look at it as an opportunity to really put your heritage and your identity at the forefront of who you are, and really not be afraid to sort of put that at the forefront. So that's what I did. My college career, like, I was not afraid to like share my Filipino heritage, whether that be with my school, my teammates. Luckily, like, was able to gain a lot of success at Penn, and I think that inherently allowed me to shine more about who I was and like what I represented to beyond just who I was a player, and that was my Filipino heritage. So I had a great 4 years at Penn. Again, like kind of going back to the year of COVID, I didn't play at all my sophomore year at Penn just because the Ivy League decided to cancel athletics for the whole year. So that brought about a lot of unknowns for me, and just technically I only played 3 basketball seasons at Penn. So I had 1 more year to play basketball after I graduated at Penn, but since the Ivy League doesn't allow graduate students to play in that conference, if I wanted to use that year, I had to transfer. So that's what I ended up doing. after I graduated Penn, I ended up going on to the University of Southern California, or USC, to play my last year of basketball. I just graduated this past Friday, but that recruiting process was kind of different. I mean, I had just gone through the recruiting process as a 16, 17-year-old who kind of didn't know what they were doing, and now fast forward 4 years as a 21-year-old, I was sort of in the same shoes again. But I think a lot of the success that I had at Penn allowed me to hear from schools that I wish I had heard from when I was in high school. I was hearing from schools like USC, like Stanford, LSU, who had just won the national championship. So I think that experience sort of reaffirmed the success I had at Penn, and allowed me to feel good about what I had done there in my college career, and use that sort of as a leaping ground to get to a place where I could maybe check off some of the things that I wish I had done at Penn. So one of those things, I had never gone to March Madness, never gone to the NCAA tournament. So that was a huge thing for me in wanting to achieve in my last year at USC. So yeah, I mean, ended up narrowing it down to a couple of schools, but I think one of the biggest drivers for me in terms of going to USC was, one, obviously trying to carry over sort of academically. I'd studied finance and management at Penn, wanting to do something that translated, so I ended up pursuing a one-year program, getting my master's in entrepreneurship. Two, being a part of a really great team. USC has a long history of success athletically, especially in the women's basketball program, but getting the chance to play with, I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Juju Watkins, playing with two other Ivy League graduate transfers who had been my competitors and now two of my best friends, but just being a part of that team and having the potential to do really great things. But three, it was also a chance for me to come back home and play in front of people who have supported me since day one. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the South Bay has such a huge basketball community, especially for Asian Americans, so the chance for people to come who have seen me play in FOR, seen me play since I was 4 or 5 years old, come back and see me play at the Galen Center, which was just a really amazing experience for me. So this past year was definitely a whirlwind. I'm not sure how many of you follow women's basketball, but originally USC was unranked. They made it to the tournament last year but got eliminated in the first round. But here, I think right out of the gate, we were ranked 21. Ended up doing a lot of great things throughout the season. It's hard to name all of them, but we won the Pac-12 championship, the last ever of this conference. Entered the March Madness tournament as the #1 seed, which is amazing, and made it to the Elite Eight, which was the first time USC women's basketball has made it in 30 years. So to say that this past year was an amazing experience would be an understatement. But in addition to what I experienced at Penn, I think this year especially really gave me the opportunity again to put my Filipino heritage at the forefront of who I was and what I was doing. Again, not a lot of Filipino Americans are able to play at the D1 level, but to be on this stage, to be playing nationally televised games, to be getting media exposure from all over allowed me to really represent that side of who I am. And I think one of the most gratifying experiences for me was being able to, again, play in LA, the city that I'm from, but to also inspire a lot of, little girls, and especially Asian American girls, to, look at someone like me and maybe think that, that one day they could achieve these things too, and to be able to play at this level and know that it's possible. Because, at the end of the day, 30-point games are great. Shooting and making three-pointers are awesome, but being able to see your impact unfold before your eyes, I think has been one of the most fulfilling parts of this basketball journey for me. So I'm really sort of proud of that experience and everything that it entailed. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me was that once you're representing sort of this underrepresented demographic, your impact means so much more. Again, like I've mentioned several times, there's such little representation of Asian Americans on the D1 level, so you have the chance to really make an impact on so many people just by playing the sport you love. And I think that's a message that I could share with everyone, using what you love as a vehicle to inspire people and to kind of just represent something bigger than yourself. I think is something that I've tried to keep important throughout my high school and college career, and something that I'll continue to do. Whether that be sports for you or arts or anything else that you might want to do. I think that's been a super critical message for me in my life, and as I continue to move forward. But in terms of like what's next for me, like I've decided that, you know, basketball has come to an end. Like what a fulfilling way to go out, like having made it to the Elite Eight and to sort of have this really amazing experience throughout my college career, and you know, everything that came before that. So I'm going to start working in August, like enter the real world, but have, you know, just been so honored to be able to not only play the game I love for you know, over 15 years of my life, but to do that alongside having so many great experiences, making so many great memories, and being able to really put my Filipino heritage at the forefront of who I am, and to be able to share that, you know, in the basketball community and you know, throughout this country as we've gotten more exposure. But yeah, that's sort of my life in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions that you guys might have, or to like talk about anything more that I maybe missed. Yeah. Yep. Here, yeah, I think so. Long time ago, but something like that. I don't think it was a 4.3. It was definitely, I made Dean's List for USC, so let's say that. Yes. Thank you, Miss. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I think a big part for me, like, has been making sure I'm just not a great basketball player. Like, there are so many sides of me that, you know, that are just as important as to, you know, how many points I can score. And something that I've really taken to heart is like how good of a student I am too. That's always been super important to me and my family, like how well I can do academically. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, for me, like metaphorically, the ball's going to stop bouncing one day. It's like, what can you fall back on, whether that be like what you study academically or like what passions and interests you pursue. So I just wanted to make sure, like, yeah, that when my basketball time is done, which is now, that I have something to fall back on, and you know, have something to be equally passionate about. For sure.
How did you stay motivated to do all that? Did you have strict parents? Did they really like push you to do all that, or was it self-motivated?
I mean, my parents always like to tell me that I've been like pretty self-motivated by like since I was little. But I think one of the greatest gifts my parents have given me was sort of like the freedom to sort of steer the wheel in a way, like to make the decisions about like where I wanted to go to college and like what I wanted to study. So I think they gave me a lot of autonomy and like what my path looked like, and I don't think I can ever like repay them for how much that was able to like empower me to make my own decisions and to do that. But that doesn't go out to say like they were on me if I you know, didn't do well on a test, or like they knew like I could have done better on a certain game, just because they like, I think parents know your potential and they just want to push you because they know how far you can go and like how much you can shine. So I appreciate sort of like that balance my parents struck with me.
I have one personal question. What was your pregame meal and postgame meal for your game?
Pre-game, luckily they fed us some pre-game meals, so it was like your traditional like your like a chicken and like a mashed potatoes and like greens. But after the games, I would like, I think Mr. Hernandez and we made a few trips to get tacos after the games. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, first question over here. Well, let's thanks, Ms. Gideon.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.